The story of City Life, where to even begin that story. Maybe a good place to start that is it was somewhere around 2003, 2004. I was a student in Bible school, and I went back to Romania to continue to do work that I'd been doing there for a number of years already. And there was a moment on that trip in particular. We were working with young people. We were teaching English in these evangelistic English camps. And there was a moment where we went back to the city that they were from, and as we walked up to the church to try to introduce them to some of the church community, I watched a pastor. And it was the first time I ever saw, and I hope it's the last time I ever see this, but I watched a pastor tell these young people that they couldn't come into the church. He just made some judgments based on how they looked or maybe their cultural background and just said, there's no way that those young people can come in and ruin what we're doing in this church. And I watched young people turn away from the church and walk away. And it crushed me wondering, will these people ever walk up to a church ever again in their life because of that moment right there that I witnessed? I remember it crushed me, and I went to the apartment that I was in, and I climbed up on this rooftop. I don't know why. Played this track from David Crowder on his Lime album, and it was "Make a Joyful Noise to the Lord" was the name of the song. But there's this bridge in there that breaks out, and it just says, "I will not be silent. I cannot be quiet anymore." And I remember just going, Lord, what am I supposed to do with this? What does this mean? How are we going to reach the coming generations if this is what the church is doing to them? And I just remember like it was yesterday, just hearing the Lord say, Aaron, if you want to reach the coming generations with the gospel, you have to plant new, healthy churches. And I just believe in that moment God had called me to pastoral ministry, and more specifically to the work of planting churches. I went back to Bible school, which is where I met my wife, Caroline, and she was from Franklin, Tennessee, and that's where we spent the first many years of our marriage. It was there that I became a youth pastor at an amazing church, and they'd given me an amazing opportunity to just grow in learning the ins and outs of church ministry from that position where they were able to pour into me. It was about 5 years into youth ministry. I went to the pastor and I just said, hey, I think it's time for us to consider what it would look like to plant a church. I don't know where, but we want to really get prepared to go. And he said, great, why don't we pull you out of youth ministry and put you in with adults, leading small groups. Well, they made me an elder. They gave me so many opportunities to grow in preaching. And I just said, great, let's do this. I was in no hurry. It was an amazing 2 years of preparation, and we finally knew that it was time to go. And it was time to pick a city. We didn't know which city that we wanted to be in. There were a number of check boxes that needed to be checked, but Charleston, South Carolina, by a long shot, checked all of those boxes. One of those boxes I'll mention was that we were looking for a city that was de-churched as opposed to unchurched. A de-churched city or culture or community is more a place that has a lot of gospel roots in it. There's been a lot of church history in those communities, but in so many ways it's been stripped down, or it's been unraveled, or people have a lot of baggage with that. So we knew that we were called to be in a context where there would be much more trying to reinvigorate people back to the gospel as opposed to reaching people who've never heard the gospel. That came out of our time in Franklin, Tennessee, and being in a Bible Belt city, and we felt like Charleston was the place that we were being called to do that. So it was May of 2016 that we loaded up some U-Haul trucks, our family and about 5 other families, and we came to Charleston. We knew that Mount Pleasant was where we wanted to start, but that there would be more to come as we got the work going. And so we started meeting in my living room, and before long we were meeting in a neighborhood clubhouse, and we said, hey, we've got to reach out and try to invite people to be a part of this church plant. So everywhere we went, whether it was the playground or the hardware store, we were inviting people. We just said, hey, if you breathe air and you're a mess like we are, we think you'd be a great addition to our team. That team grew to be about 35 people, and it was in October of 2017 that we launched City Life Church in the space that we currently meet in. Since then, there's been a lot of highs and there's been a good handful of lows. But I can't think of a difficult season that we've walked through here at City Life where God hasn't been good to us. He has shown us many things. He's taught us incredibly. He's humbled us. He's strengthened us. And all along the way, I can look back and just see how he's been confirming the call, the mission, the vision that he has placed before us. And it's this. At City Life, we say we want to see all people know and live and tell the love story of Jesus. That is our vision. And we believe that our mission, the way that we are called to do that, is by making disciples and planting churches. And so what you're going to hear around here at City Life a lot is that we're constantly pursuing this mission to start new churches, to plant new churches all around the city. Right now, the doors have been open and we're planting a church in the Park Circle community. We don't know when that's going to launch, but we're growing that team and looking to add people to that team even today. We're doing a lot of that work of seeing all people know Jesus and live for Jesus through our city groups. We just believe that our city groups are the container for discipleship and that we just want to see everybody a part of a city group. We just believe that nobody was designed to walk the Christian faith in isolation, and that we've been designed and we've been given the opportunity and the giftings, to be that community for each other. One of the biggest values that we have at City Life, if there's all the things that I could say with the time that I have, one of the biggest values that we have is the conviction to open God's word and proclaim the gospel. We always say this. We just believe that if the Bible isn't open and if we're not looking verse by verse at some of the things that God has been so generous to give us in his word, then we don't have anything to say. So more often than not, we preach through books of the Bible. There will be occasions where we will get into topics, but we just think it's so important to be anchored in the scriptures where we ultimately then see the person and work of Jesus. We hear the good news of his gospel. That is the aim. That is everything that we want to communicate. And it is at the other end of the gospel where people meet Jesus that we find that our mission is being fulfilled, that we are seeing fruit in that vision that we have to see all people in our time know and live and tell the love story of Jesus. And so if you're here at Explore and you're asking the questions, what does it look like to get more involved in this church? For one, I hope that story serves you, and I hope it kind of gives you a picture of the heartbeat of what we're doing here, why, and where that comes from. Two, I would ask the question, how can we serve you? I think oftentimes we're saying, how can you serve here? But I want to know first, how can we serve you? Maybe you're here, you've been in a tough season and you're looking to kind of restore and refresh for a little while. We always say, then take a minute to do that, but at some point your minute's going to come to an end and we're going to invite you to be on mission with us. I would say, let us help you find community here. Let us help you find that city group that you can pour into and that can pour into you. And when you're ready, I would say, hey, come and jump in and serve in a part of the mission that we're on with the gifts that God has given you. We just believe that we're on a mission to see many more churches planted around our city. And we know that might take some time, and we're looking forward to the time that it's going to take. But until then, hear from me. I'm not the only one, but I'm super glad that you're here. I look forward to the time that we may get to spend together, and just invite you to take the next steps that are ahead of us here at City Life.